The one thing that strikes me most about you as we sit across from each other is I think you're incredibly, and given your family background, this might sound strange, but you're incredibly British in the most amazing way. And I think you'd be recognized around the world as actually being incredibly British. So the question I want to ask you is, what does it mean to be British?
It's an excellent question. And, one's mind travels backwards and forwards over various, the famous George Orwell, vicar on the bicycle and the warm beer and the cricket. And there's an element of that. And I think I'll start off with, as you say, given my family background, I think growing up in a very traditional English way in a country house, sent away to school with other English boys, but coming from a Jewish family, at least half Jewish, and realizing quite early on that I was gay in a world in which, I was interested enough in literature and reading around it to know that meant prison and exile and disgrace and stigma and shame. So it's almost as if I overdid it. I mean, I look at myself psychologically. I'm a member of the Garrick Club. I'm actually wearing his tie at the moment. The MCC, the Beefsteak, the Athenaeum, the Savile Club. It's unbelievable. The Oxford and Cambridge Club, the Arts Club, the Chelsea Arts Club as well.
He's just showing off.
I know. No, I mean, it is
you are the liberal elite.
No, it's more than showing off. It's actually revealing something deeply tragic. This absolute desperate need to be accepted and to feel that the doors of society are open to me. Of course they're open to me. I mean, I don't know why I keep needing, but for some reason I have this this sense. I mean, I wrote about it in an autobiography, and the way I put it was that, like a lot of adolescents, but unfortunately as an adult, I've still taken it. I was pulled apart by this tension, these contradictory impulses. One was to stand alone, to be, the Ibsen hero, he stands strongest who stands most alone, that thing of being the individual, different, apart, but at the same time yearning to belong. So to be apart from and to be a part of were my two things that pulled me. So I wanted to look down on people who were there, they're playing their rugby and doing their thinking ordinary thoughts, being conventional, imagining a life with mortgages and owning garden hoses and lawnmowers. and I wanted to be apart from that. But another element of me just so wanted to be embraced by the world and to belong. And I think that is a strangely English thing, or at least a certain kind of Britain has that, this need to stand apart. And I don't belong to any of that nonsense. I don't believe in this, and I'm different. And to say, but also to join. But what it is to be British, I mean, I grew up believing that it was fair play. And I think that is still a part of, British and the Anglo-Saxon tradition, because the Australians call it a fair shake. You've got to have a fair shake, decent, equity in that sense, not social justice warrior equity, but just, something's not fair. And that's as a child, we all know children scream when things aren't fair, and we are enraged by injustice, and we should be. We shouldn't ever lose that, I'm sure. And I think a certain, this is impossible to say, because it sounds the opposite, but a certain modesty is important, a certain sense that one isn't quite good enough and that one should be better is an important part of being British. And disliking showing off and braggatism and general sort of braggadocio, if you like. And that's why we find Trump so incomprehensible. I mean, a lot of what he says or what he stands for, we can completely understand why people vote for him. But what, just at a simple personal human level, the idea that a British person could ever vote for someone who was so full of themselves, it's just so, oh my God, you cannot talk like that. You heard him saying he's so good at this and he's the best at that. No one would be acceptable in British society. In a pub, if someone said, I'm the best that ever, you go, Excuse me? In the same way that we couldn't have a prime minister who said, let us pray, or God will, Tony Blair is probably the most religious prime minister we've had for a while. But we just would not accept that. There's a fantastic moment. Here's what it is to be British. Kipling, great writer. No accident, Nobel Prize winner. Obviously, unfortunately associated with empire and the Raj in ways that have made him a little bit unacceptable to some people. But if you read him, you think this is a truly great writer. And T.S. Eliot and many others were, built up his reputation when it had fallen down a bit. There's a scene in one of his novels, a kind of almost comic novel of school days called Storky and Co. Hugely popular book. And it was kind of based on his own childhood. He represents himself as a character called Beetle, who's very short-sighted because Kipling was almost blind. And there's a moment when a politician comes to the school, and we know that what happens to Storky and his friends, they're wonderfully naughty children. They're very disrespectful. They're absolute renegades as children, Storky and Co. at their school. But we know that they then join the army, and two of them are killed, and that they're kind of soldiers, and that they probably are patriotic. They believe in their country and therefore, I suppose, empire. Anyway, a politician comes and speaks to them at speech day, as they do at these schools. And he points to the flag and says, "The flag, my boys." And Storky and his friends start to hiss. They hiss him down. They cannot bear that someone should talk in that way, sentimental way about country. It's a private thing. You may have feelings about your country. You may have pride in something, but for someone to talk about it is just bad taste. And that sense of English bad taste, that you don't parade such feelings like patriotism. And to this day, I think if a politician went on about the glory of the country, like when Michael Portillo, in a very short period when he was Defence Secretary, did that, wrapped himself in the flag, and to people of right and left, it was just distasteful. And I think that is a problem for the British, because whatever the British values may be, they are under threat, as they are. Western values generally are under threat, deeply under threat. And to defend them means to speak in a very un-British way. And that makes us uncomfortable. In America, they don't have that problem. They talk about freedom and America and the flag, and they're very happy to do it. But we find that faintly preposterous. But maybe it's time for me to change and to be less British and to wave the flag not in terms of empire and past greatness and silly things, but in terms of values. Values which include free speech, which include respect and affection for the underdog, that include self-mockery and an ability to consider other people from inside, if you can, I suppose.
Stephen, it's been...
I don't know if that helps.
No, it does. It's a wonderful way to finish the interview. The final question is always the same. What's one thing we're not talking about that we really should be?
I suppose I would say